This program is intended for a mature audience. If you are not 18 or over, please stop listening and find more age appropriate content. The show will cover content in an adult minded manner. If you are offended by any material here, you have a choice to stop listening. Please listen with an open mind and don't discriminate to the ideas of our guests. Thank you and enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to Living Well with Bad Habits. Today I have my co-host, my husband, Dave.
Gremlin Dave,
or
whatever.
Gremlin Dave, as he's known.
What's your name?
My name is Ashley Shannon, and we also have a special co-host today, the Queen of Nails, Crystal. And then our special guest today is Dr. Russell Kennedy, who wrote the book Anxiety RX, which I actually have right here. You can find that on Amazon. That's how I found it. So I will let you go ahead, Dr. Kennedy, and tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, my name is Dr. Russ Kennedy. I'm a medical doctor, neuroscientist, and anxiety specialist who struggled with my own crippling anxiety for like 30 plus years as a result of growing up with a father with schizophrenia. So I have devoted my career to helping other people get out of the hole that I was in for a very long time. So I help people understand anxiety in a very different way than most traditional psychologists and psychiatrists.
Okay. Yeah, because as I was I haven't read the book yet, which I'm very interested in doing. I just skimmed over parts of the book, and when I was reading about your dad and that, I found that very interesting. Because as myself, as a child, I wouldn't know how to deal with that growing up. Which in that's what made you start all of this in the first place is your dad and his mental health issues.
Yeah, pretty much. And then I became a medical doctor. I think a lot of the reason I became a medical doctor was because my dad was so sick and nobody could really help him. So I tried in some way to have some power over illness by becoming a medical doctor. But the downside of that is that you're around sick people all the time. So I was trying to sort of, get ahead of illness as best I could. And then I just sort of wound up sort of swimming in it all the time. So that created a certain amount of anxiety in my life too.
Okay. So there's several things in here that I'm actually very interested in. You go into talking about how your LSD and psychedelics and that you've tried.
Okay.
What was the reasoning for all that?
Well, I was kind of hit rock bottom. I think that there was certain places that I just couldn't seem to get to in my own healing, and that a friend of mine was a sort of an Ayurvedic specialist, so he was a specialist and also in psychedelics too. So he suggested I try that because I'm very conservative in general, as most medical doctors are. So I didn't want to do it, but I was sort of so low at that point and so deep in anxiety that I didn't really have much of a choice. And I don't really recommend psychedelics for people with anxiety because I think a lot of us, we demand control. I think a lot of anxiety people look for control in their world. And the thing about LSD or ayahuasca or psilocybin to some extent, it takes all the control away from you. So it really makes you face your fears directly, which is good on some level because I think we have to process it, but it also is like hitting an ant with a sledgehammer sometimes too. So I think my approach to anxiety is much softer than that. I say in the book, let me take one for the team. Like if you've got anxiety, probably avoid doing psychedelics if you can. And if you are going to consider doing it, do like a year's worth of somatic work first, so that you lay some groundwork so that you can actually get something productive out of the experience. So there was nothing about psychedelics that actually I finished the psychedelic experience and thought, oh, I've had this magical revelation, my anxiety's healed. What it did show me was that my anxiety had much more to do with old alarm trauma that was stored in my body than it had to do with my mind. My mind was just reflecting this old trauma that never got processed from the time I was 10 years old dealing with my dad. So I think it was really important to show me that the psychedelics showed me that anxiety had much more to do with the old alarm energy stored in my body than it had to do with my mind. My mind was just reflecting this old unresolved trauma that was stuck in my body since my childhood.
So it kind of dug it back up to where you thought you had it kind of buried.
Yeah, well, it allowed me to see something different about it because up until that point, I was treating anxiety as a mental disorder. So I thought that if I could change my thoughts, if I could just be grateful, if I could think positive, if I could do all these things, that my anxiety would go away. And those things that they helped, but they didn't treat the root cause. And what LSD and what the psychedelics showed me was, hey, the root cause of what you call anxiety of your mind is actually this trauma, this background alarm, this alarm trauma that's stored in your body from your childhood that's never been resolved, that's still in there, that when you were a child, you pushed down, Freud would call it repression, you pushed it down so you wouldn't have to feel it as a child, but it's still there. And then as you get older, I think this old trauma starts coming up more and more. It starts picking at you more and more. And as your relationships, kind of dissolve, or collapse, you start wondering, well, what's going on with me? Like, what is happening? And I think one of the best things about psychedelics is they showed me that anxiety had much more to do with this old alarm energy stored in my body than it did with my mind. My mind was basically just taking that alarm energy and translating it into a language that I could understand, but that language was just worry, was just fear, which is making me feel worse. So once I started treating the old alarm energy in my body by connecting with, the younger version of myself, the child that was wounded, that, didn't have a dad, that looked after him. Once I started looking after that and started healing the alarm that was in my body, the anxiety of my mind just started to fade because the anxiety in my mind was just a byproduct of this alarm in the first place. So what the psychedelics really showed me was anxiety had much more to do with this old alarm energy stored from trauma in my body and than it did with my mind. My mind was basically just a reflector, and then I would blame the mind and try to fix my mind, but my mind wasn't really the problem. It was this alarm energy that was stored in my body. And I think that's where a lot of allopathic psychiatrists, psychologists mix up the problem, because they start thinking, well, if I could start changing, making you think differently, making you think better, and that's helpful. But unless you actually deal with that trauma that's stored inside of you and bring it up to the surface and feel it on a feeling level, not just a thinking level, on a feeling level too, that's how you heal. Otherwise, you're just sort of coping with the symptoms. And I think that's what most therapies, specifically in North America, do. They help you cope with the symptoms, but they don't really deal with the true underlying root of the problem, which is this old trauma that's still stuck inside of you.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. um, as a person who it took years for me to get off of anxiety meds, I understand that struggle and knew that it was more than just up here. Because I do have fibromyalgia,
Okay.
and I know that like when my anxiety was really bad, it actually made the pain in my body worse.
Sure.
So I can understand where you're saying that, but it took a lot of counseling and a lot, like, I think also what helped me get off of them is the factor, because I was on benzos
Okay.
and
Which one were you on?
Klonopin.
Okay.
So um and I mean high doses of it, and it just, yeah, I ended up eventually getting addicted to it is what happened.
It's
um
pretty easy to get addicted to benzos for sure.
yeah, and then
Because they work.
because,
They do actually work, but they come with pretty major side effects, especially
yeah,
long term.
they do.
Don't we have kids that are on those?
No.
Okay. We have 6 boys that deal with
Yeah, you told me, yeah.
A
trauma.
lot of mental health issues and trauma themselves. So and disabilities and things like that. So, and they all range differently. I have one
Now, are
son.
these your kids, or are these you adopted these kids, or how did
Okay,
you?
my two sons
Okay,
are he adopted.
Hmm.
okay,
His children, I'm in the process of, we are doing adoption. So in total, he has four, I have two, together we have six.
okay,
Yeah, because my kid's mom is pretty much MIA, doesn't want anything to do with the kids anymore.
okay.
The biological father on her side abused the boys.
Yeah,
And
Okay.
instead of taking responsibility and deciding to get help, he took the easy way out and just,
signed his rights over.
yeah. So,
I'm sure he probably had major trauma of his own, not excusing people, but this is what happens. Trauma just gets handed down through families, and I see it time and time and time
He
again.
does have trauma, but the
Yeah.
problem is he is diagnosed with bipolar disorder. He's also been diagnosed a malignant narcissist. Um,
From
so
trauma, probably
yeah,
from trauma. Yeah,
I dealt with a lot of abuse from him myself for 16 years. I went
yeah,
through it, physical, mental, emotional. Um, After divorcing him is when I finally was able to start my healing process.
yeah. Yeah, and that's what happens. And I hear stories like this all the time, and it just I don't think we're born, bipolar or narcissistic or whatever. I think things happen in our lives, specifically our childhood, that push us into that. And then, we wind up abusing other people based on the abuse that we felt as well. So it's like,
Right.
do we track this back to Adam and Eve? Like, where do we go? So I think it's really important just to see that that mental illness, it comes from trauma,
Mhm.
and but there is a certain amount of responsibility you have to take,
Yeah.
for your own actions as well. And some people who are so traumatized, they just don't even they can't even see their own role in it. So it just becomes it's a societal thing. It really is. Like, I think that we live in a society now that's just full of trauma, and it's getting worse.
Yep, exactly. And I find myself with our boys, for instance, especially my oldest son who is 18. Mentally he's probably like 12, 13 years old.
Okay.
Um, he is diagnosed bipolar 1. He also has what's called DMDD,
Okay.
severe PTSD. I mean, his depression is horrible.
Mm,
Um, for all these years, they thought he had ADHD and kept treating him with medications. I kept telling them it's not ADHD. Like,
hmm
this is not right. Like, something else is going on here. So finally this year we finally got it all straightened out, and yeah, sure enough, he's bipolar.
Okay.
Stimulant, he goes off the wall, like he gets super angry from them.
Okay.
um which told us that that's not ADHD. um ADHD, I know, does come with anger components and can play a part in certain things,
Sure.
but he's got that. He doesn't have that reason component when he gets
Mm,
mad. There is no rationalizing at all. I'm mad and I'm gonna stay mad, and then once I calm down, then I can talk to you.
mm.
Type thing. So I mean, he's even been committed for trying to commit suicide. Um, so yeah, I mean, we finally found a medication that works for him, which is lithium.
Okay.
Um, but he takes a lot of medications. Like, I mean, he wets the bed every night.
Okay.
Him and Jaden, which is my other biological son, suffer from severe night terrors because of the abuse that they endured.
Sure.
Um, but not only because of that, I stayed in an unhealthy relationship, and I tried to fix that relationship to keep my family together.
hmm
And they seen things they shouldn't have seen. You know, so they have all that trauma there too that they're dealing with. And for the longest time, I beat myself up about it. And I'm like, I'm not doing that anymore. Like, in order for me to be able to move on, I take accountability for the things that happened, and I know what happened. But now we need to push forward and actually get the help to be able to move on and
Yeah.
process all this.
Yeah. Makes perfect sense to me.
So, and the thing about medications with me is I was an addict for 11 years to pain pills and other things like benzos and stuff like that. Um, been clean for 17 years.
Wow,
Um,
good for you.
yeah, so I mean it was a lot of hard work. That's why right now with what I'm going through with my brain and it because I have
Mm-hmm.
intracranial hypertension is what it
Okay.
is. Caused from COVID.
Okay.
And I'm the first case in Wisconsin. So they're like really baffled by everything and they are trying to figure out what would be the, right step to do. And I've been dealing with it for over a year now.
Did you have the vaccination?
I had the first two.
Okay.
Yep. And after that, they said no more because of how I reacted to them.
Yeah, probably fair.
So, they actually made me get chronic migraines,
Okay.
right off the bat. So, which I had when I was younger. And then, once I got COVID, because I've had COVID 8 times.
Okay.
Once I got COVID back last February is what triggered all this.
Okay.
And now every time I get sick or I get COVID, it gets worse. And
Mm-hmm.
when they do a lumbar puncture, it relieves the symptoms
Okay.
for anywhere between 4 to 24 hours.
Okay.
So it's been a pain in the butt, and I just try to stay positive and keep going forward.
Yeah.
That's all you can do. But the only way they've been able to help me is, of course, narcotics. And I'm severely afraid of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want to get to that point again where I was in
Right.
the past. And I like my impulses in that when I do like feel like something's happening, I end up throwing them away.
Okay.
So get them out of my house, get them away from me, then I don't have to worry about it. So my
Yeah.
doctor gets mad at me about it, but I told him, I'm like, I don't know if you understand at all why, like, I would be impulsive like that. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
but I worked my butt off to get off of these.
Right.
So why would I put myself in that position again? And yeah, so little frustrated with medical doctors right now and stuff like that because of what I'm going through and the fact that
Sure.
it's taken so long to figure anything out. They don't want to do a VP shunt. They said that's invasive and honestly, it can cause problems later on down the road where it has to be replaced and it causes
Right.
infections and things like that. And the surgeon told me straight out, I don't want to put you through that.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're talking about doing what's called a sheath.
Okay.
So I'm just like, okay, or lumbar puncture therapy.
Which didn't
And
last long, 24 hours.
no, exactly.
Right.
So yeah, just dealing with, my own medical issues and things like that. And I do see a counselor.
Does that give you anxiety, Ashley?
Yeah. Yeah. But I find different ways to deal with my anxiety because I refuse to take medication for it.
Mm-hmm. So
I just
how do you deal with it?
A lot of the time, like I used to do Tai Chi.
Okay.
It's not as bad as it used to be.
Okay.
But just relaxing in the dark, my lavender chamomile vapor going.
Yep.
I used a lot of stuff with lavender and chamomile in it.
music therapy.
Yep, music therapy. That's a big one
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
So when I feel things getting overwhelmed and I start, because I know when my anxiety is starting because I'll start shaking.
Okay.
And that's when I put my earplugs in, my headphones in, and I just ignore everybody at that point. And take
Okay.
like an hour to myself and do my breathing techniques, my grounding techniques. I also do what's called mirror therapy, or as they call it, positive affirmations.
Okay.
So I do things like that to help with my anxiety.
Okay.
I just live by it. Is what it is.
It's very-
Well, with
Some
6
days,
boys with issues, you're gonna have to find something to live by, that's for sure.
yeah,
It works because I've got it after what I've dealt with in my past. I've kind of realized that there's stuff I can change, there's stuff I can't, and once I accept that, I can't change the past, it is what it is, and just kind of move forward. And tomorrow's a new day.
Yeah, I mean, so much of the pain of anxiety is the resistance to it, right? Like I shouldn't be feeling like this, or what can I do to not feel this way or whatever. And if you try and flow with it as best you can rather than resist it, a lot of times that will ease off the underlying cause of what the anxiety is in the first place, because a lot of it just you know thrives on resistance, your own personal resistance. And that's true with pain in general. If you resist the pain, the gateways for pain in your brain and spinal cord get worse. They open up more, and you feel more pain. The more you resist it, the more pain you'll feel.
yeah,
And I think the more you can kind of trust your body and sit with it. And the other thing about smell, the sense of smell is the only sense that isn't pre-packaged in the brain by the thalamus. There's a part of the brain called the thalamus that kind of is like the central switchboard of the brain. And every sense goes through the thalamus first, except for smell. Smell goes directly into the emotional parts of our brain. So if we can have a smell that's soothing, that goes directly into the emotional part of our brain that is responsible for a lot of the resistance and pain of anxiety in the first place.
yeah.
so I have a question for you, Dr. Kennedy. Your book is about anxiety. So what if somebody, is it stress or is it anxiety? Does your book delve into that at all? Or is this for people that know specifically they're dealing with anxiety, or can it help both?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll help both, because basically it really just gets you into your body, because that's the motor, that's the engine of what creates the anxiety in the first place. So if you can use what the natural grounding stuff in your body, your breath, smelling an essential oil, breathing yourself into a relaxed muscular state, that kind of thing, that will help you both with stress and with anxiety. Typically, anxiety comes from most of the people that I see, virtually 99.9% of them have childhood trauma, and that's what causes most anxiety that I see. So it's really important to sort of get yourself into your body, because your body is actually what's feeding the anxiety in the first place. That's the root cause, is this old program that's stuck in your body that I'm not safe. I have to be vigilant. I have to make sure that I keep myself safe. And when you realize that you don't actually have to panic and resist, and then you can start to see things in a more objective light, because as soon as you get into survival physiology, where you resist it and you fight it, you create all sorts of norepinephrine in your brain, adrenaline, and cortisol in your system that keeps you in survival physiology, that actually shuts off the rational part of your brain. So not only do you create more worries when you're in survival, but the part of your brain that would tell you that the worries aren't accurate is shut off. So the worries, you make more worries, and then you believe the worries. So it's really important to understand that your body plays a huge role in helping you heal. And I think that's what we miss a lot in North American society, is that we're trying to fix the thoughts all the time. And the thoughts are just a byproduct. They're not the underlying cause. They make things worse, absolutely, but they're not the original cause of the anxiety or the stress in the first place.
No, I totally agree with you. Like childhood traumas, mine started when I was about 5. And that was sexual abuse.
Okay.
Um, so and that was by my cousin. Then I started getting sexually abused by my stepfather at the age of 10.
Okay.
Um, ended up almost having a baby by him. Um, and he was also physically abusive. So I ended up choosing a partner that was exactly like him.
Yeah.
And I thought that was normal. Like, but once I started to catch on to things, I was in survival mode. I had kids. I worked 3 jobs. I, you know, took care of my kids. It was about surviving because there were several times where he tried to kill me and my kids are what saved me. And that's why I said they shouldn't have seen things that they seen.
Right.
And because of that, my 18-year-old now, when we were going through the divorce, and even before that, started thinking it was okay to put his hands on me. And so that's how he tried to deal with things all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he even broke a broom handle over my back. He's broken my ribs. He's, so getting him out of that cycle and thinking that's okay has been a lot of work. Which we still deal with incidences at times with him getting like that. And unfortunately, when he gets out of control, we have to call the cops on him.
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks, but
Yeah.
it's like you need to learn that when you have behavior like this, there are consequences for it.
Yeah. Yep.
So, and our counselor, he is really, really awesome. Like, he is like, so pretty much he told me, he goes, you pretty much didn't have a life because you always spent it in survival mode.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. Or like fear. Like I would fear coming home from my job. I would fear like getting up in the morning. I would fear what was going to happen the next day. Like
Yeah.
all those sort of things. So it's just, yeah, it's not easy. I've actually lost, I had 2 stillborns, so I had to bury two babies.
Okay.
Due to the abuse from my ex-husband.
Mm-hmm.
I've also had 7 miscarriages due to him. Um, so like I should have a lot more kids than what I do.
Well, 6
So
is a lot of kids, but I understand what you're saying.
yeah.
6 is a lot already, but I understand what you're saying for sure.
And I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Of
Like,
course. Yeah.
my stepkids, I don't really normally refer to them that way. I refer to them as my kids because
Yeah.
I'm their mom.
And
They're
everybody thinks she's nuts for jumping into that.
Well,
Maybe a little.
yeah, but I have helped them a lot. Like
oh, I'm sure.
a lot. Our one son actually just graduated special ed this week. Which we're super proud of him. Like,
Nice.
so just the fact that I'm like, okay, because I always beat myself up all the time. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're a failure, you're not good enough, you're this, you're that. And that's because of my past, and I already know
Sure.
it. But hearing that and the teacher saying, well, Ashley, you put in a lot of work, you helped him a lot. Like, he wouldn't have gotten to where he's at without you pushing him. And so that made me feel really, really good.
Okay, I haven't read your book yet because she's been like reading it more and more, and I haven't had a chance. But did you and your father ever like fix anything, or
His mic is on.
why is your mic muted?
Sometimes it does that.
Um.
It's doing, there we go.
Yeah, it said the host
Okay.
was not allowing participants to unmute
Oh
them. So
wow,
I
I don't.
believe So I sneezed, so I muted it so it didn't come up on the recording. So then it
Oh,
wouldn't allow me to unmute myself. So
sorry.
well, my dad has been dead for 36 years now, right? So I have done a fair amount of work at just not forgiving, because I that word for some reason just doesn't jive with me, but just understanding, that he came from a background of trauma and abuse too, and I think that's where his bipolar and schizophrenia came from. So, it's hard for me to kind of blame him, and I don't blame him actually. I mean, I think he did an admirable job for what he was saddled with. He still did a good job of being a parent to my brother and I when we were younger. And then when he became more incapacitated, well, he didn't really have the option of being able to. So as far as that goes, I don't hold a grudge against my dad or anything like that. In fact, I really admire and appreciate how hard he tried with the having two hands tied behind his back like that. So I think that we have to, on some level, heal with our parents. We don't have to like them, we don't have to hang around with them, but we have to have the idea that they brought us into the world, and we have to be able to sort of respect that position, even though they were damaged people. And I think the more we can do that, the more we can see their position, see them as damaged and hurt human beings, rather than taking it personally, and taking their behavior personally. I think it's a lot easier on us, because it's so easy to blame yourself when things don't go well, and especially if you're a child. You blame yourself. That's what children do. There's a great saying that says, if you abuse, neglect, or abandon a child, they don't stop loving the parent, they stop loving themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's where things start, and we split from ourselves at that particular point. And the other thing that you said was, we create what was normal for us in childhood. Freud called it the repetition compulsion. So it's this unconscious desire to replicate our childhood, even though it was damaged in our adulthood. So we create a lot of chaos in our lives. We go through a lot of relationships. We become addicted to things. It's just a way of kind of recapitulating, or remaking our childhood all over again. And when we start realizing that that's what we're doing, at least we have some awareness as to what's going on. Now, we need that other part of our brain and our body and our nervous system that says, hey, you know what, I don't want to live like this anymore. And clearly, you found that. It's like, I don't want to live like this anymore, so I'm going to change. I'm not going to be an addict. I'm going to do these things. So some people don't have that capability. I mean, I think on an ethereal level, we all have the ability to kind of change our patterning and that kind of thing too. But I think it's just realizing that, and I don't like how this sounds either in a way, but our parents did the best that they could. But I guess they were really at the effect of their own wounding. Really, their behavior was at the effect of their own wounding. So it's kind of like, where do you blame? I mean, it's very difficult, and blame is kind of like a form of resistance again. It's just like, okay, well, this happened, this is what my dad was like, this was very uncomfortable, but I can embrace it on some level now, because I'm away from it. He's been dead for 35 plus years. So I think it's just being able to see it in a more objective, curious light, because if you look at your parents with curiosity rather than blame and shame and all this sort of stuff, you can kind of see where they came from, and it kind of takes the pressure off you in a way, because I think we do take things personally as children, and it really wasn't us. It was any child that was in that position would have had the exact same experience.
Well, it's like my mom, for instance, with knowing what I had gone through, like, because I went to her and told her what was going on. And so she was aware of it, but did nothing about it.
Yeah, and that's one of the worst, with and I hear that a lot with sexual abuse too, is that you're not believed, this kind of thing. And it's so devastating for a child when you tell the caregiver, because it takes a lot to be able to tell the caregiver in the first place, and then to have that admonition kind of just ignored is
Yeah.
excruciating for a child, because there's no grounding left. I mean, they're already suffering because they're being abused. They don't have a lot of grounding that way. And then when their caregiver takes that away from them, takes their credibility away from them, well, you know, we can do a lot of damage to our children. We can do a tremendous amount of damage to other human beings. And
Yeah.
it's a very difficult place. And with me, I see it quite a bit, and I see, the abusers were abused themselves most of the time, not always, but most of the time. So it's very difficult to kind of draw blame and shame on your abusers, because they were, abused themselves, and it's just part of the human condition in a lot of ways. And just being able to sort of accept and like you've done, is like treat yourself the best possible way that you can. Give yourself the best options for healing that you can.
Now, is this some of the stuff that you go through on like your podcast and everything?
My podcast is usually, quite short, like somewhere between 15 and 20 minutes. I usually take an issue like health anxiety or anxiety in general, and I just give people some practical things to help them understand it. So it's not, I don't go on for very long. My goal was to sort of have something that people could start off on a little drive if they're going to go pick up their kids, or they're going to do something that will change their attitude towards their anxiety. And if you get a number of things like that, after a while it starts to piece itself together, and then you start going, okay, well, maybe I will look at this theory a little closer. Maybe I will look at the anxiety being in my body more than my mind. Maybe I will ground myself a little more. And I think the more that you understand it and accept it and create an awareness around it, the more you have the ability to change it. But if you don't have any awareness around it, just doing breathing techniques and that kind of thing really isn't going to change you in the long run. It'll help you in the moment feel a little better. Your body feels a little better, but to really heal, you've got to go back and find those places, find that child that's still in you, and show them that you see them, hear them, love them, and protect them. And that they're not back there. They're not back in that situation that was untenable when they were, 5 years old. They're basically with you now in the present day. But the way the brain works, the way the amygdala works, is the amygdala is a place in our brain that kind of modulates fear, and it has no sense of time. So when we see something or experience something now that's very reminiscent of our trauma back then, that amygdala will take us back to the same kind of brain and body state that we had when we're being abused. So of course we're not going to have the wherewithal to be able to help ourselves. Of course we're going to get involved with addictive medications and that kind of thing, because we don't know how to heal. We don't know how to heal it. We don't know how to deal with it. So my podcast is about, kind of like short snappers. It's like, 15 to 25 minutes of, here's something that I've dealt with, or my patients have dealt with, social anxiety, health anxiety, whatever, that can, change how you think, that change how you perceive your own anxiety. And once you see your own anxiety in a different way, then you have an option of changing it. But if you see it the same way over and over again, it's never going to change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Like our 16-year-old, well, my biological 16-year-old, so he is severely disabled, and he is 16, like not mentally, but physically 16.
Okay.
Mentally, he's between the ages of 4 and 6.
Okay.
So he does not, like, if you could hear him at nighttime when he has his night terrors, he like screams.
Yeah.
It's bad. He wets the bed. He's like he's got epilepsy, mosaic Down syndrome.
Okay.
He's what they just diagnosed him with autism spectrum disorder,
Okay.
which he used to have PPD. And like he's got skin cancer, a lot of stuff, just a lot.
Wow.
So like him being able to process all this, it's really hard. Like
Of course.
they use play therapy with him, which seems to help. And it's nice because the counselor he sees, he had a son that was autistic.
Okay.
So he understands it more. Like we just had a neuropsych eval done on Jaden again because the last one that was done, he was 7 years old.
Okay.
So they found out like his IQ score was like 43. So it's difficult, especially with him, and he's going through puberty and he doesn't understand it, and he's like, it's like, oh boy, like how do you explain this to him? And I mean, he gets angry and he will turn around and punch people, and when he does get upset, he doesn't have that rational, to calm
Yeah,
down
of course.
either. And
Yeah.
he's got a lot of sensory problems. And and he can't handle loud noises and things like that. So it's really difficult. I was actually trained how to do stuff with Jaden. So it's just, yeah.
So do you do the same thing with him that you do with you, like put you in a dark room and put on
No,
some smell, nothing like that? No.
nope. With him, because especially if he's in that, as we call him, sensory meltdown state, there is no helping him in that form. He will not allow it. You
Okay.
literally have to just go up behind him, like you're gonna hug him like this,
Right.
and bring him down to the ground and just slowly rock back and forth and talk to him calmly. And then I start having him do the deep breaths.
Okay.
And that seems to center him. They at school with him, they do what's called a guided meditation. At home they do kids yoga. So things like that. But Jaden is very particular on smells, so you have to be careful with what you use. Same with texture, taste, all of that.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, all our boys, well, except for Caden now, have IEPs for school.
Okay.
And they all suffer some sort of trauma. So like the boys, the four,
Yeah.
as I say, one of them was actually physically abused by their mother and treated absolutely horrible, like told he was worthless, he's nothing, she wished she would have never had him, all that. And he's in counseling and he does what's called day treatment. So but he at times can get really overwhelming. Like he's so just off the wall, like bouncing around. He's diagnosed OCD. He's got PSTD. He's got, what is that called? Teratogen disorder. It's from alcohol being drank while you're pregnant.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Teratogenic. Okay, sure.
Yeah. So like him and all his brothers deal with that. They're diagnosed dyslexic, they're ADHD, yeah. If you could see the amount of medications that I have, it's insane
I'll
for the
bet.
kids. So, and me personally, myself, I don't like meds. So, like I got mad when we ended up having to go back on Lyrica,
Okay.
because that was hell coming off of when I came
Okay.
off of it. But we're back on it due to too many injuries happening, and it affected the nerve in through here, down through my arm, down through my legs. My legs especially. And so yeah, like we're gonna start weaning off of it. But I do take, they also put me on 2 other different meds for nerve pain,
Mm-hmm.
which is nortriptyline
Okay.
and then Prestique.
Okay.
And I told my doctor, this is not going to be a long-term thing. You are getting me
Sure.
off of these because I did. It took me too much time to get off of meds and to
Mm-hmm.
actually get into the routine of dealing with this naturally and being able to, just go for a walk. Like I would take magnesium and zinc and then I'd go for a walk and then I come home and soak in a hot bathtub, which helps a lot with fibromyalgia.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's some benefits to medication and then there's not. Like Lyrica is one of the worst drugs ever. That's just my opinion.
No,
So
it has some wide-ranging effects. Sure, pregabalin is one of those medications that it helps with pain, but there's a lot of downside to it for sure.
yeah,
It's kind of a
water
last
ret-
resort medication. A lot of,
yeah,
yeah,
and
a lot of
water
stuff.
retention done from it. Like the first time I was on it, I was on like 300 milligrams of it.
Okay.
So I almost got up to 200 pounds.
Yeah, that's a lot of Lyrica.
Yeah.
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 And have you ever
And
tried anything like cold plunges or anything like that?
cold what?
Plunges.
Cold plunges, basically. There's a guy named Wim
Taking
Hof.
your head and basically sticking it in ice water,
No, it's your whole body.
your whole
Yeah,
body.
it helps regulate your autonomic nervous system. It helps regulate your pain control. There's
So
a guy
that's what
named Wim
cold.
Hof. I don't know if you've heard of him. Wim Hof, and he does this breathing thing, and he's also, they call him the Iceman. That's kind of his nickname and that kind of thing too.
Okay.
But for fibromyalgia, irritable bowel syndrome, so any of those autonomic dysregulated disorders, it seems like cold plunges really help. And they, so you dip yourself. The water can't. Some people put ice in it, but you don't have to go that cold. Like I think the studies show that even 61-degree water, which is uncomfortable just to sit in for 2 or 3 minutes, but it does seem to have some real benefit for people with things like fibromyalgia, irritable bowel syndrome, things that really affect the autonomic nervous system. So that might be something to look into for you. And
Okay.
it's
Well,
not
thank you.
medication, it's not addictive,
Right.
and it seems to really help people.
Yeah, we do cold tips. Like
Okay.
you get a bowl
Yeah.
and fill it with ice water
Yeah.
and you just put your head down in it as long as you can tolerate it.
Yeah.
Because that actually helps with anxiety as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. It's the same idea, but
Right.
there's something about doing it through your whole body, like up to your neck, that sort of helps regulate that sort of fight or flight reflex in your
I'm gonna
system
have to
and
try
helps
it.
calm it down. Yeah. Just read a bit about it too. It's called
Okay.
cold plunges. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because my other thing is like if I go out to a store or a restaurant or anything like that, I'm constantly looking around. I'm very like hyper vigilant.
Hmm. Well,
Because
that
I'm
would make
wondering,
sense based on your background for sure.
yeah. If I run into my ex like at Walmart, I
Okay.
literally will start hyperventilating and
Sure, you
bawling
will.
my
Yeah,
eyes out and I run out of the
absolutely.
store.
Yeah. And that makes perfect sense. I see that to people who have been physically, emotionally, sexually abused by anybody. If they run into them, they'll have a massive reaction. And again, that's the amygdala. That's saying the part of your brain that recognizes trauma and sends that right through your body instantly, because it's based on our evolution. When we see things that traumatize us, we get away from them.
Yeah.
So it mobilizes your body to do that. So I've got about 3 minutes. I've got another call at 1. Is there anything you want to sort of
Um,
wrap up?
Sure.
Well, the main thing I guess would be I guess people that are listening, you want to just tell them where you can find all your stuff and like
Yeah.
your book and stuff like that?
Yeah, sure. The Anxiety MD, not the Anxiety Doctor, but the Anxiety MD. If you go on Instagram, that's where you find me. It's the Anxiety MD is my website. If you just kind of Google the Anxiety MD, all my stuff pretty much comes up. My podcast, my book, all that kind of thing. So I'm fairly easy to find that way. Instagram, if people want to contact me, Instagram's probably the best way of doing it.
Okay.
I get hundreds of messages every day, and I go in the morning. I try and go through and send as many back as I possibly can. And I'm still at the phase where I can pretty much respond to everybody, but it may take me a few days.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
But
totally understandable.
but I can see how it's going to be. It's getting unruly. Like there's just getting so many, because there's so much trauma in the world. So many people. I wish your story was unique, Ash, but it's not. Like there's just so much trauma in the world.
Yep.
And it just gets handed down from generation to generation to generation to generation. And until we start changing it, and there's a lot more awareness now than there ever has been. Like our parents didn't know that there was help. There was
Yeah.
so much stigma involved in trauma, and that but now we're into the age where it's like, okay, you know what, we got to do something about this. And people are taking responsibility for their own healing and that kind of thing, and
Oh,
and
there's
taking it away from psychiatry, psychology, all that kind of stuff. Those people can help you, but you really have to decide that you're going to do it for yourself, and it sounds like you have. And then
I
just
do have
using.
one more question for
Yeah,
you.
sure, go ahead.
Have you ever tried EMDR?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
so EMDR, it's I think it helps symptomatically. Some people really get a lot of benefit out of it. Typically, the research shows that if the trauma that you had was a specific trauma, like you were assaulted or what, like once, or you had a car accident or whatever, EMDR seems to be helpful for those. But if you had sort of chronic trauma, like you did with your sexual abuse and stuff, if this occurred over years, EMDR doesn't seem to be in the studies to show to be all that effective at that. It helps in the short term. It helps sort of, kind of deflect your brain and your body into something else in the short term. But as far as actually healing the root cause of it, I don't see that with EMDR too much. Now the EMDR people are going to get mad at me, but this is just what I see in my practice. And you got to remember that I see people that have, tried everything and nothing has worked. So they've been through EMDR, they've been through therapy, they've been through CBT, they've been through all this stuff, and
Yeah.
none of that stuff has worked. So that's why I wind up seeing the people that have sort of treatment failures based on what they've tried before. So I'm likely not to have a really good outlook on a lot of these therapies, because the people that I see have tried these therapies and they haven't worked, so they've come to me. So I have a little bias that way, but that's most of what the data shows about EMDR. Is if it's a specific event, it seems to be fairly helpful. If it's chronic, like your father was an alcoholic or abusive or whatever, it seems to be less effective for that.
Yeah. Cool. That's what I found out when I did it. So,
Yeah.
And do you still do stand-up comedy?
Not so much since COVID. No, I've written a bunch of stuff, and I may sort of go back to it. I have a nice comedy club here in the city that I live in, so I may go back to it. But right now I'm so busy with anxiety stuff that I don't really have a chance to do anything else right now. So that's something I've got to start looking after for myself, because I'm starting to get a little overwhelmed with it. So I have to figure out a way of like, how am I going to deal with this? How am I going to make it sustainable? I'm going to the UK to do a podcast over there.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's going to be kind of a big deal in May. So
Well,
I'm just trying to balance out, because I could work 24/7, and try and help people as much as I can, and still not get to, still
Right.
not sort of touch as deep as I'd like to go. So I like, writing and that kind of thing, and that's kind of how I reach people. The book has reached a lot of people, and I'm really happy about that. So it's just really changing the way that people, even therapists, I get messages from therapists just about every day saying, I'd never thought about this. I'd never thought about anxiety being more the body than the mind. And now with my clients, I'm A, recommending your book, and B, we're starting to do more body-centered stuff. as well as the mind, because you need both. You need the cognitive stuff. We have huge prefrontal cortices, we human beings, so we need the thinking stuff, but we also need the feeling stuff too. And I think what most therapies miss is they get the thinking stuff, they get you to try and think better, but they're not really operating and trying to get you to feel better, like working on your body and working on the actual state of your system, the feeling, because how you feel dictates how you're going to think. So if you feel anxious, you feel afraid, it's very difficult to think, grateful, happy thoughts all the time if your body is in this state of fight or flight.
Right.
Well, if there's anything in the future that you want to get out there, feel free to message us, and
Sure,
more than happy to help spread your word and stuff like that. But
Well, I'd love to have him back on again.
yeah, well, you know where to find me and that
Yep.
kind of thing too. And good luck with your operation stuff. And I hope things, kind of work out for you and stuff. And having 6 kids, 6 boys with trouble like that, you guys are saints, to
Thank
to
you.
to do this, to do the work that you do.
You try.
Yeah. And you're doing your best so that the trauma doesn't get handed down as best it can, which is very admirable for sure.
Well, thank you for joining us, and you
You
have
are
a
welcome.
wonderful day.
You too.
And hopefully we can do this again.
Absolutely. You know where to find me.
all right, we'll keep in touch.
Okay. Bye, guys.
All
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Well, we might as well pimp out some of your stuff too.
Yep. So, Crystal, tell me where we can find you.
Find me. I'm right here, Ashley.
No, for your nail business.
Well, we know where you are, but other people don't.
Well, so I take it you're asking about my nails.
Yes.
Okay, so Color Street, ladies. I live in the world of Color Street. I love it. I use it. Ashley caught me on a day I'm not wearing it, but I love Color Street. I love mixing, matching. It's great. I work at a job where my nails are never long anymore because they're always getting hit on boxes and caught on things. So I have very short nails, but with Color Street, they will still look amazing. Now I am on Facebook at Sunshine Nails VIP Group. All 4 words, Sunshine Nails VIP Group. I do have a website as well, www.colorstreet.com/Crystal Sunshine, hence Sunshine Nails VIP Group, because I love the sun. And I think that's it. I don't know where else you can really find me right now.
Okay. Can
Yeah.
you tell us a little bit more about the business you guys are opening?
Oh boy. Now that yes. So my husband has a cigar shop opening up, and we're not quite there yet. We've had some delays with materials, with contractors, so it's been a very long road. But we should be within weeks of opening at this point. So we're opening a cigar shop. However, we already have an online website where we do sell the pipes and the pipe accessories. That is www.happypiperstore.com. In the state of Wisconsin, we are not allowed to sell any tobacco online. Hence why we are opening the store to sell the cigars and the pipe tobacco. However, you can find all the pipes on our website.
And you guys have a heck of a selection on there. And
yes, and that group is also on Facebook. And that group is phenomenal. That one keeps me busy. I haven't had time for my own business these last few months because his business has been so busy with trying to get the store open. So my poor ladies have kind of been living without me. But I'm praying as soon as the store opens, I will have more time to dedicate to my own business again. But the Facebook group is huge. Dave, you are a member of that. Dave, you were actually over last night because why?
Well, you needed kind of a little rest.
That wasn't what I meant. But no, what do we do on Fridays and Tuesdays in the Happy Pipe?
The live show.
We do live shows. Yes, we do live shows on Facebook for the Happy Piper. They are they're about an hour long. They usually tend to go over 5-10 minutes. It's
I
full
think
of laughs,
yesterday,
it's full of products, it's full of
I think
family.
yesterday we went over about 20 minutes.
That's because you were here. But no, it's a lot of fun, and that group is just one big huge family at this point. Um, Literally, it's a big family. It's amazing the generosity from member to member. Like
Mhm.
we'll have people purchase things, and I'm not talking $20. I mean, we've had people purchase $100 items and say, "Hey, ship it to so and so." The group is phenomenal, absolutely
Yep.
phenomenal. Yeah.
Plus, the drinking game is fun with that. Every time Travis says brand spanking new, you take a shot. You can get pretty lit from that.
Yes, we have a few. The New Year's marathons are great. This year we went 8 hours. Facebook cut us off because I actually think they cut you off at 8 hours. But we jumped back on and went a couple more, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah. We've had people take us to the liquor store with them on their phone. I ran out of beer, you know. The drinking game, Muppet Speak, Happy Piper Dictionary, the stuff you guys need to join the group if you want to know what we're talking about.
Mhm.
Yep. Yeah, I know I've had it on while cooking supper or helping Ashley with stuff.
Yep.
She's had it on while cooking supper and that and jumped on. And there's been a couple times where she's popped on there and been like, "Oh, you need to go on and check out this pipe he's got on there right now." And I'll go on and be like, "Oh."
Or
Yes,
driving, like with my phone on my dash, of course. I'm driving safely.
yep. Yeah,
Oh,
we actually have truck drivers in the group, so but it's fun, you know. I give Travis a hard time whenever he's up there, and so there's a little back and forth between us. But it's great. It's Tuesdays and Friday nights. We do the two live shows. We're hoping once the store is open, we can institute a morning weekday show. Because we've had people say, "Hey, I work third shift. Can you do a morning show?" So once the store opens up, we fall into a routine with that. We're hoping to start a morning show for the overnighters.
Yeah,
Yep.
and
cool.
the nice thing too is on like his website and that if you miss the show, you can go on and watch the replay.
Yep.
Yeah, not on the. We don't have that on the website,
Or I mean on Facebook.
Facebook.
but in the group, correct.
Yep.
In the actual Facebook group, we call it the replay. We leave that up for a few days until we do the next show. So yeah,
But
you can still purchase after the show. Yep.
you and Travis are amazing at that. I just have
Hmm.
to say. I mean, it is great time. I mean, it's not only the fact of being like it's informational too at times because Travis does know his stuff on it. And I was actually surprised how much you know on that because you were telling him what this pipe was before he was even doing it. So that was kind of I was getting a kick out of that yesterday.
Yeah, and it goes back and forth because he knew a lot of the pipe stuff because he's a guy, he smoked the pipe before. Me, I'm learning it as we go. So I'm learning shapes, I'm learning the brands and the different finishes with the brands. I really don't know like the numbers, like the 316 KS versus the 111 KS. I couldn't tell you which is which by looking at them, but I do know the difference between a bulldog and a Rhodesian.
Plus, I got to see the St. Patrick's Day line yesterday.
Yes, you did. I've only seen one of them so far. So
I got to see about 6 or 7 of them, and there's a couple of them I want. So, but I know
yeah.
everybody else on the show yesterday kept saying, "Oh, can we at least see him?" Nope, can't see him yet. Gotta wait. I asked Travis at the end of it. I'm like, "Can I see him?" He's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll show you him." So I got to see them all.
Oh, that's right. That's the perk of being a co-host. Yeah, and we also the Happy Piper for all you pipe smokers out there. We actually offer a layaway plan, so that's been a huge hit as well. We are the only ones to offer that. So that helps the more budget-friendly buyers get a nicer pipe into their collection that they wouldn't normally be able to purchase on a regular day. They can expand that pipe collection. They can get that one cherished pipe that they've been really wanting. Put it on layaway, and you've got it. So
And
and we
I know there
cater.
was
Yeah, had $35 pipes up to $500 pipes. We do the whole realm. Everybody, everybody.
there's one of the St. Patrick's Day pipes that I really want, but it's about $200, and it's like I don't know. Yeah, it's really cool though.
Your face, Ashley.
I didn't say yes to anything. But it
He
looks like
knows not to say yes.
it looks like the one where you always see a leprechaun and he's got the pipe and it's that U-shaped pipe. It's really cool.
I'm sure it's really cool. I'm sure it is, babe. But you don't even smoke anymore.
Yeah, I quit smoking. I haven't
Yeah.
had a cigarette. I haven't had tobacco in 7 weeks.
Congratulations.
over
That's a
that.
good thing. That is a good
7
thing.
weeks today.
Congratulations.
Yeah. 7 weeks.
Congratulations.
I mean, I still do the vaping, but
Which is just as bad. So shame on you.
I'm not really,
I'm
because
not getting the tar. At
you're
least.
not getting all the chemicals in that are in the filter of the cigarette.
But no, I mean, yeah, watching you guys do that show, it's great. And
Yeah.
what you guys have accomplished, especially with the store coming up and like with your business and stuff. Because when we go to the I don't know if they're really flea markets, but the little
Like
shows,
stuff.
yeah, when you both have your own separate booths set up in that, it's really cool. I mean, the products that
Yeah.
you have, the products Travis has, and how you guys like mesh there,
Yeah.
it's really fun. And then watching you two kind of like Travis is kind of like a puppy dog when you're sitting there going at him like, oh yeah, you know, you should have done this, and he just kind of looks at you like, yeah. Like it's comical listening to you when you guys are talking back and forth.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, but it keeps the show fun. You
Yep.
know, it keeps the show fun, and a lot of people they come back just for the laugh. I mean, we've had people, we've taken in the last 3 years. I think we've missed like 2 shows that we haven't done, and we literally will have people message us like, "Oh man, what am I gonna do?" You know, or we come back and they're like, "Oh my gosh, we really missed you," and you know, it's like I said, it's family. We get together twice a week, and we're spread out throughout the U.S. and Canada now.
Yep.
We have started to ship to Canada as well. So we've had a few Canada buyers now, and that's worked out well for us. So I was able to, I've figured out the customs forms and all
Awesome.
that. So, yep.
Oh, and by the way, I had our oldest son roll his eyes at me because I told him your joke.
That well, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why
Did you
the
tell
old
Ash?
man fall in the well? He couldn't see that well. So he looked at
Took it home with him.
That's a good
he
one.
looked
Though.
at me and just went, ugh.
Yeah. Hey, it's a cute, good, clean, fun joke.
Yep. Although people kind of missed when Travis really slipped up yesterday when he was talking about that website.
Oh gosh.
That's a thing. And you were trying to point it out, and I'm like,
Yeah, I know. I stopped after I seen that. It's like, wait a minute, wrong show.
yeah, it's wrong show.
Like, oh, good one.
Air, yeah. That was close. So that was a close
Yeah.
call.
He told me about that.
Oh, he did, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, it was a lot of fun yesterday, and I really appreciate when you guys had me on. And
Yeah, and I'm glad you did stay because I went to bed before you guys were even done. I never even heard you guys after 5 minutes after I walked out of the room. I hit the hay. I was out like a light. So
yeah, I was hoping that I wasn't too loud or anything after you went to bed. So
I didn't hear anything. No worries.
She needs to come over and join one of these times to see what it's like.
Yeah.
So
One of your shows?
No.
Me, come over there.
Oh yeah, you absolutely. Yeah, it is. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Most definitely.
I don't know how Travis would like having 2 women on him though.
I don't know. He'll probably just have you two, and he'll just say there's not enough room in the office, so it'll just be you two. So then me and Ashley can just go do our own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
We
and
can go
I was talking
about you guys.
I was telling him yesterday about making the plans and that, and I'm like, well, I can't really make any plans because I gotta talk to Ashley, and he goes, yeah, same here. So it's like we'll just have the women talk and figure out when and where we're going.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah. Yep.
She tells me where to go. Most of the time it's nicely.
Yes.
I understand. Yeah, that's right.
Thank you for being on with us today.
Oh,
I
you are
appreciate
very,
it.
very welcome. Absolutely.
And everybody, go check Crystal out in her VIP group and go check out the other VIP group, the Happy Piper.
Yep.
They're awesome.
Awesome. All right. Well,
Well-
I will see you guys later. And actually, yeah, we'll have to figure out when we can all get out for dinner again. So,
Yes, because I want to go to Hacienda.
oh, I love that. That's my favorite one in town.
Yep. So,
Awesome. Sounds good to me.
all right, we'll let you get back to what you were doing.
Okay. See you guys later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wrong mouse.